Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome, all you rock dwellers. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, joining you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and that is George Landrith. I want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, in the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and our newest station, which is in Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C. And with that, George, we do have our first guest with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Absolutely. We're very excited to have Timothy Snowball with us. He's an attorney at the Pacific Legal Foundation. He's in their Sacramento office, and he practices in a variety of areas, but focuses primarily on free speech, equal protection under the law, administrative law, keeping government in its lane, so to speak, and so it's not overreaching. And he also does a lot of work in economic liberty and property rights. And so with that, Tim, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
George, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here in the trenches with the Commandos.
Well, we are glad you're here. You know, you've written a really good article, and it's about socialism and how it's not progressive, it's not fair, So let's just talk a little about socialism, because I think for a lot of people, they are misinformed and believe that socialism is about being fair. It's about trying to have correct the inequality that sometimes can exist in a market-based economy. And when I hear that kind of talk, I always scratch my head and go, so the alternative is that government bureaucrats will decide what's fair? But anyhow, why don't you tell us let's walk through this problem.
Well, sure. I think you've identified probably the primary point, right? Which is that, socialism has become kind of a hashtag on Twitter or some other social media platform, right? Where it kind of loses all of what actually made it a harmful political ideology in the 20th century. I mean, any economist worth their salt or any historian who studied even the barest, machinations of the 20th century will tell you that every time that socialism has actually been tried in practice, it's led to the misery and death of millions upon millions of people, right? It's a failed system. It's never worked once. And we don't even need to consult the history book. We can look at Venezuela to see exactly how this type of thing plays out generally. Shortages, corruption, a basic breakdown of institutions in society, and people wind up either starving or rioting in the street. And so it's an interesting thing to see, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and different, politicians coming out now and claiming this mantle of socialism, and actually having Americans get behind it is curious because of the harmful effects. But as you mentioned, we're not even really sure what people mean by socialism. Do they mean a large social safety net? Do they mean seizing the means of production? Do they mean seizing property and redistributing it? And so that's part of the problem is, how do we even combat these bad ideas when the people who are proposing them aren't even really capable or don't seem wanting to provide a concrete definition?
Absolutely. And I mean, in the case of someone like AOC, I suspect she's not capable of telling you what she actually believes in, because I get the impression the more I hear her talk, the more I think she's an empty-headed idiot. But for many, I'm much more cynical. And I think they try to, when we point out things like Venezuela or the former Soviet Union or China or any other number of places where socialism has created misery and suffering, widespread, they'll say, oh, that's not the kind we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about Norway or Sweden. I'm like, well, they have a very large social, kind of social net as a backdrop. But the reality is they get very upset when people call them socialist. I've seen their parliamentarians and members of their national government point out that, they don't seize private property. The government doesn't own the means of production, but that they do have a large social security sort of, I don't mean social security like our program, but a security net. But they pay a price for that. They have very slow and very anemic economic growth. Most of Europe has effectively had no real economic growth in the last 2 decades.
Right. And to the degree they had, it's largely been, a product of deregulation and entrepreneurial free market capitalism, right? I mean,
Right.
One of my favorite quotes I remember is seeing, an old interview with Milton Friedman and Phil Donahue, where, Friedman makes the point, he goes, there has never been a system yet discovered that can hold a candle to the productive capabilities of entrepreneurial free market capitalism. We literally know no better way to lift the poorest people out of poverty. And so it's an interesting thing to think that the United States now has advanced to the point of having such material wealth. I mean, the poorest people in the United States now, relative to people living 200 years ago, 150 years ago, 100 years ago, are living like kings.
Or around the globe.
Around the globe. Yeah,
if you live in America, you're part of the 1%.
We absolutely. We currently enjoy better access to goods and services, medical care, education. These things would make the King of England 200 years ago jealous, you know what I mean? And it's only because we've advanced to the point where we become so advanced materially that we even have time to sit around and discuss these ideas of socialism, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Karl Marx was a fantastic fiction writer, you know what I mean? But so is C.S. Lewis, right? And we're not trying to remake American society in the image of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, the things that Marx predicted have never come to pass. Every time you've had a socialist system be put into place, it's been at the barrel of a gun. And that's a point that I do a lot of public speaking. I go out to a lot of American universities and colleges and speak to students about these ideas. And the point that I'll always make to them is, socialism inherently, when you think about socialism, you have to think of force. Government is stepping in and trying to make decisions on your best behalf because they think that they can decide better than you can, whether it's how to spend your money, what choices to make in the private marketplace. And that entire dynamic stands opposed to many of our American ideals.
Yeah, that's for sure. One of the things I think is very interesting about, you point out that Marx was a lousy historian and a lousy predictor because he predicted that socialism and communism were a more advanced economy and that it would be very natural. In other words, that the most advanced economies, which he thought at the time would be like Great Britain and maybe America and others, would be the first countries to become socialist. And in fact, like you said, it's happened in the most backward countries, the countries that were not very well advanced. They were basically third world countries in terms of their economic power at the time. And it's been done at the end of a gun, not because there was this anyhow, it's just very interesting. He got everything wrong.
Well, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Marx. I'm trying to remember from college because, of course, I was forced to read Marx like most other American college students in the last 20 years. I'm reading Marx, right? And I remember Marx's theory of, labor theory of capital, where Marx has this entire section of this painfully written section of this book where he's saying, the value of a shoe will be equal to the amount of time it took the shoemaker to make the shoe. And I'm going like, that's not true. The value of a shoe is how much people are willing to pay for it, right? I mean, when you go into Target and you're picking up, I don't know, like a bath towel or something, are you looking for a tag on it that says how many hours it took to produce the bath towel? No. We're talking about, basic principles of competition, the way that price levels function in a market economy. That's reality, right? And Marx, for better or worse, really bases most of his philosophy on the way he would like things to be, and not the way they actually are.
Yeah, that's the truth. But not much of a historian, not much of an economist, and not much of a scientist. He was just dead wrong on everything. One of the things that, and we've only got a little bit of time left in this segment, but I am glad you're sticking around for the next segment because that'll be, I think, just great. But there's lots more to discuss here. But let's talk a little bit about some of the costs, if you can, in just say a minute or less, of being socialist, just because they always act like it's better. So,
Sure. Well, I mean, when you look at the United States, this is something I talk about often. You look at certain ideas, right? The United States really was revolutionary, not only in our actual political aspirations in breaking off from Great Britain, but in terms of the first revolution based purely upon ideas about individual rights and the dignity of the individual, constitutionally limited government, the rule of law. All of these things, these are our heritage as Americans. And these things, again, stand in direct opposition to ideas of socialism, which is individuals don't have rights, groups have rights. Property rights is something that can be just taken or granted at will by the government, depending upon arbitrary political distinctions. There should be no limitations on government. I mean, I always find it to be interesting. Every time the Democrats run into some kind of hiccup in their proposals or they lose an election, all of a sudden they're calling for the full-scale reformation of the U.S. Senate. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think that really just goes to the heart of what the relationship is between their principles and the American Republic.
Yep. Well, that's a good place for us to take a break here. We'll come back after the break with Timothy Snowball and continue this conversation. You're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Trader, and we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast all across this great nation. And we're also coming to you on the AUN TV network. And, of course, if you're not near a broadcast tower of either radio or television variety, you can always catch us on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveda. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right time. It's too time.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. My co-host today is George Landrith. George is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and I am Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, best place is to go to our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find our radio broadcast, our TV broadcast, a lot of great articles, and a lot of great a lot of terrific information. Don't look for us on Facebook. We have been permanently banned by Facebook. I don't know, Tim. Maybe someday we should have a free speech conversation here. But our guest is Tim Snowball. He's an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation's Sacramento office, and we're discussing an article Tim wrote that's published on thehill.com. Socialism is neither fair nor progressive political philosophy. Tim, thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure.
Tim, before we pick up the conversation, I have to chastise my co-host, George Landrith, for saying that AOC is an empty-headed idiot. George, one thing that she did learn by getting that economics degree at Boston College or Boston University is how to make a mean margarita. She learned
there
that.
You go.
She learned.
So her head's not entirely empty. I apologize.
No.
I take it all back.
You know, Tim, I have this expression in front of me here, or it's a saying by Ronald Reagan: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You know, I will bump this up by saying that we are only one election. We're only one election away from losing our freedoms. That if Democrats get control of the Senate, maintain control of the House, elect a president, we are in, when you listen to the promises that the 20 some odd Democrat candidates are making, they seem to be in lockstep with one another. We're in deep trouble. Would you, Tim Snowball, am I being too far outside the box on this?
Well, maybe just a tad, right? I mean, I consider myself to be a bit of an optimist for a few different reasons, you know, on that front. First, I have immense faith in the American people, right? And the American people, by and large, when you look at the polling numbers, reject socialism. You know what I mean? People aren't buying it. You know, basic common sense would dictate, you know, if you're somebody who even regularly balances a checkbook, you can understand why this system would not work and why, you know, the proposals the Democrats are fielding are failed proposals. So there's that. Of course, also, you know, I was trained as a political scientist, right? In college, I'm a constitutional litigator now. I'm practicing law, but in college I took political science. And for all the noise and the media and the talking heads and the back and forth and this and that, political scientists, for the most part, would say, you know, usually in incumbent elections, it's generally pretty easy. You can look at 2 or 3 different variables and try to get a handle on whether or not someone's going to be reelected. And when it comes to those 3 variables, President Trump scores very highly. They say, first, you should look at the economy. How's the economy doing? We're right now probably arguably in the largest expansion, economically speaking, since World War II. That bodes well for an incumbent. Just being an incumbent bodes well for the president. People are less likely to want to change the status quo when someone's already been in office, for better or worse. And third, of course, is just basic party ID, that people who are generally voting a certain way are going to come out and vote that way again. And so, you know, I'm loath to predict with too much certainty what's going to happen in 2020, just because 2016 was such an upset. But, you know, from my perspective, I think things are probably better off than we would say. But that's not to detract at all from your point in terms of President Reagan's quote. You know, I always go out and like I mentioned before, speak to college students, do public speaking events, and either present things either online through print media or other things. And the point that I'll always make to people is the fight for the future of the American Republic is now. And if not you and I, then who? And, you know, not everyone's going to be able to devote massive amounts of time or resources to this fight. They're raising families, they're putting food on the table. But I'm convinced that there's something that each one of us can be doing every day to wage this battle of ideas. And whether that's talking to your kids, over breakfast, whether it's talking to your neighbors, whether it's talking to church friends, whether it's volunteering in the community. There's something very special about the United States that is under threat, but I'm certainly not ready to throw the towel in yet.
Well, Tim, thank you for walking me off the ledge on that one. But you mentioned in the first section of the interview with George about the Morton Freeman interview with Bill Donahue, and I've watched that, and we've posted that many times here on Conservative Commandos. You also mentioned that you go out and you speak to college students on campus and things. When I watched that Freeman interview, it was amazing how he was able to grip the students and the audience that was there. When you go to college campuses today, will these kids listen to you and give you the time and respect?
I think it depends in great part upon the political culture. I've only had a couple of instances where I've had someone kind of actively try to interrupt me, you know what I mean? But usually people are very respectful and will listen to the ideas even if they don't necessarily agree with them. The thing I find to be the most interesting, though, is I've had students approach me after these presentations and say, I don't get it. This is the first time that I'm hearing these arguments and these ideas. How can I have gone through X number of years, either high school or even people who are getting along in college? How can I have gone through all of these classes on American history or American government or anything else and not have heard these ideas? I don't get it. And that's definitely something that's interesting to me. I had some very important teachers in my education that really sparked an interest in me to pursue not only this line of work, but more of this calling, And so I always find that to be questionable and unfortunate. I don't know exactly how you fix that. Most studies nowadays say if you want to become a permanent faculty member on a faculty of higher education, you actually have to fudge your resume and appear to be more liberal than you are, or else you just won't even get your foot in the door. You won't be able to even get an interview. And so even if we had the goal to openly diversify higher education, I don't know how you do that if the hiring committees are so expressly biased.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Timothy Snowball. He's a lawyer at the Pacific Legal Foundation, and we're discussing his article, Socialism is Neither a Fair Nor Progressive Political Philosophy. Tim, great article, by the way. Was really,
thank you.
In fact, I mentioned to George last week I wanted to get you on the show. In your article, you mentioned you have a list here, if you will. Maybe in talking about socialism, maybe a better approach would be to start with what socialism is not. Now, you and George talked about a couple of these things, that socialism is not new and that socialism is not working in Europe. But how about socialism is not more fair or just?
I think absolutely, it's a fantastic point. I mean, you look back at American history and you've got just generations and generations of Americans, of immigrants coming here and trying to become Americans, looking for a better life for themselves and for their families, right? Based upon the idea that here in the United States, there is freedom and opportunity like nothing else in the rest of the world. And I think that people are still seeking to come to our shores for these very ideas. And so when I look at individuals all the way from someone who may have come here and gotten a job, or even someone, found a business, be an entrepreneur, I look at these people as trailblazers, right? And so when you look at a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg or anybody else who's been very successful in our free market economy, I mean, I want to see more millionaires walking around the streets, right? People get these, on the left talking resentments toward millionaires. I want there to be more millionaires because that signals to me that they have provided a value in our society through voluntary exchange. And I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at the Windows program, think about how many trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars have been added to the economy. The compensation that Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg have received has probably barely scratched the surface of how much value they've actually added.
Tim, I guess you also talked a little bit about that when you say socialism is not superior to capitalism. Also, socialism is not better for the individual.
Well, certainly not. Certainly not. I mean, I think that one of the main things you'll have come up with people, young people especially, who are espousing this socialist creed, is that they've become kind of obsessed with this idea of equality. And we're not talking, again, about equality of opportunity or equality before the law. Those are concepts that are at the very, core of what it means to be an American. They're more obsessed with this idea of the equality of outcome, right? The idea that the economy represents a fixed pie, and if one person benefits, they must necessarily be benefiting at the expense of someone else. Of course, we all know that that's not how it works. You know what I mean? You come up with a new invention, you open a new business, you are creating new wealth. That wealth didn't exist before you created that business or that new product, right? And that's the entire purpose is, you're not necessarily benefiting at the expense of anyone in our economy. Through competition, you can pave your own way.
All right. Timothy Snowball, Pacific Legal Foundation, we want to thank you so much for coming here on Conservative Commandos. Tim, please tell our audience how they could follow you, read your articles, and also find out more about the Pacific Legal Foundation.
Absolutely. So it's kind of fun. If you want to read this article, I tested this earlier. If you just punch into Google Snowball and socialism, the article pops up. So I guess I've got that going for me. But the firm is available at pacificlegal.org. We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @T_Snowball_ESQ. And we're always producing new content on all of our cases. The organization exists purely to come to the aid of Americans who are being unfairly targeted by our government and to enforce the Bill of Rights. So I encourage everyone who's interested to please go on and check us out.
All right, Tim, again, thank you so much. Take care and God bless.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader.
AMFM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AMFM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir Shaikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. And Nasir, we have a very special guest with us. Please make that introduction.
Thank you, Rick. We have Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, who is a representative for the Missouri's 4th District since 2010. She serves on the House Armed Services Committee as well as the House Agricultural Committee. Prior to her time in politics, she taught family and consumer sciences. She also served as spokesperson for the Coalition to Protect Marriage. Congresswoman Hartzler, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We wanted to get right to it. There was an article that you wrote, and it was the Equality Act would lead to the death of women's rights. Now, obviously, it's been 4 days since that passed in the House, with 8 Republicans, voting for the passage. But since we know that this isn't going to go anywhere in the Senate, and obviously, even if it did, we know that Trump would, veto it. What is the reason right now to continue to sort of shine the light on this inequality bill, in parentheses, obviously?
Well, I think it's just like you said, to shine a light on the misconceptions or the mistruths that are being stated about this bill. In fact, I believe that they are using women to advance the liberal agenda, and it's actually harmful to women. And I think it's important that the American people know this, because they're not going to give up on this. They've introduced this bill for many years now, but now that they have Nancy Pelosi as the speaker, they feel like they have some traction, and indeed they did pass it out of the House. So they're going to keep chipping away at this, and if the American public, especially American women, believe that this is good for them, then they could succumb to this messaging attempt that they are trying. So I think it's very important for the American public to know absolutely how devastating this bill is.
And Congresswoman, isn't it also probably in a way that obviously we, when we take a look at this bill, we obviously see that there's a tremendous amount of inequality in it, but isn't it also perhaps a positive maybe in this way that at least it puts the members of the House on both sides where they voted on a bill that would actually promote inequality of women, so that they basically, there's a record of it, that they stood behind it with their vote?
Well, I believe it will come back in next election to haunt some good representatives who unfortunately voted the wrong way on this bill and succumbed to the lies that have been told about it. This bill hijacks the 1964 Civil Rights Act to enshrine as a protected class, in addition to the current classes of race and sex, sexual orientation and gender identity. And basically, it's a top-down, government-imposed discrimination against anybody who has differing views of human sexuality, gender, and marriage, and it would give individuals no repercussions or no rights, to go to court and to argue against this, including it's a violation of women's privacy, and that they will have to be forced to share their bathrooms with individuals who identify as female, even though they may be male. Women's sports will be devastated. Already we're seeing instances where trans women are racing, competing, and beating biological girls in track races, in boxing, in cycling, and you name the sport. I wonder and shudder what this is going to do down the road for all women's sports, and certainly the Olympics, I think, will eventually never be the same. But it's going to impact women's domestic violence shelters. We've already had examples of a shelter in Alaska where a transgender man came to the shelter and demanded to spend the night there, but the shelter was only for women, and when they referred him elsewhere, then he sued them, and they're being charged with discrimination and may have to, eventually shut down their services. And so this is just a few of the examples that can happen. We've also had the medical profession impacted by this. We've had 2 hospitals, who are Catholic hospitals in New Jersey and California, who have refused to give a sex change operation to a teenager, an underage youth, because they did not believe in their medical opinion that was best for that youth, and they're being sued for discrimination. So the ramifications go on, and we've got to expose how dangerous this bill is and make sure people do not support it and do not ultimately support candidates who run for office who support these things.
We're here speaking to Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler of the Missouri's 4th District. And Vicky, on the other side, I've got my producer, Rick Trader, who I know is itching to ask you a couple of questions as well. So, Rick?
Congresswoman, I got a press release from Families First New Jersey, and in there they also had some very alarming facts about this bill. One, churches would be forced to host same-sex ceremonies. Churches would lose tax-exempt status for non-compliance. And also that churches or religious organization taking overnight trips, including sports or mission trips, they cannot segregate rooms by biological gender. Congresswomen, are these facts or fiction?
I think all it takes is one person to go to court and to make this case, and I think that is going to happen somewhere in this country, and it could decimate the rights of churches and religious freedom that is so foundational for our country, because whether it's churches or like Little Sisters of the Poor who were able to go to court and say based on their religious beliefs the government cannot force them to provide contraception. They wouldn't have a leg to stand on in that this bill specifically excludes the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which had been used for a long time to exempt entities from having to comply if it's based on a deeply held religious belief. And so this is very dangerous for churches, for what is taught in schools, but for our religious freedoms, this is a very serious threat, absolutely.
Congresswoman, it seems like every time we try to give somebody more rights, give them their equity per se, it infringes on somebody else's rights. I mean, am I thinking too far outside the box?
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, this tramples on somebody else's right and forces everybody to have the same belief. And our country was built on tolerance and being able to, in the public square, maybe have disagreements. This would force individuals to have to adhere to one certain set of beliefs at the expense of their deeply held beliefs, and that's just not right.
Congresswoman, one more question, and if we do have the time, I think another thing that I've read about this, which is very alarming, that doctors would be forced to do procedures, not forced to do certain procedures on girls, for instance, mastectomies as young as 13. And I only bring this up, if this is true, I only bring this up to alert our audience about the perils of this bill.
Yes, that is one of the real concerns with this, that no longer would you be able to say, this is against my deeply held beliefs, I don't believe this. You could be called that you were guilty of discrimination because you are not providing this service to this patient. And it's very alarming that doctors and nurses would be forced to participate in these or leave the profession. It also is a real threat to parents. We have an instance in Ohio where parents had their parental rights taken away from them and given to the grandparents because they refused to agree to hormone blockers for their 16-year-old daughter who wanted to transition to become a male. They did not believe that was in her best interest, yet she went to a counselor and a hospital. They disagreed with the parents, and so then they went to court and started the procedures to remove this child from the home, and they did. And so This is a huge threat to parental rights, to the medical profession, to churches, to religious, and to school, and to girls, and to nonprofits. I mean, this is just a devastating, dangerous bill. It's got to be stopped. In the Senate, we're very hopeful it won't be brought up, but they're going to keep pushing this, and the American public needs to know the truth behind this and to push back on the narrative when someone tries to claim that this is about equality. It is absolutely not. It is about inequality and advancing one person's beliefs at the detriment of somebody else's.
Congressman, what do our viewers and listeners out there need to do?
Well, right now, I'd encourage them to contact their senator and make sure that they understand they do not support this. They don't want them to take it up now, or they don't want it, if this is put as an amendment into a larger bill, such as a future spending bill or budget bill, that they will not support the whole package. Anything that this bill is put into needs to be opposed, and they need to let their senators know that.
Congressman Vicky Hartzler, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I'm Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government, and I'm joined tonight by Sandy Rios, who's the Director of Government Affairs for American Family Association, one of the most powerful organizations and most important organizations in this country, fighting for our actual freedom, our religious freedom, and against a lot of the insanity we're seeing going on in Washington, D.C. and around the country. If you want to get a rebroadcast, check out the rebroadcast. If you heard something, you missed something, or you want to recheck out this segment, go to ccrsnetwork.com or ccrshow.com, and always like us, friend us, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for the Conservative Commandos. Sandy, how would somebody be able to follow you on Twitter or American Family Association on Twitter?
Well, on Twitter, it's @SandyRiosTweet. It's real simple, @SandyRiosTweet.
And the American Family Association?
Yeah, I do the morning show for them. It's Sandy Rios in the morning on AFR Talk, and I am their Director of Governmental Affairs. So that's how they reach me. Yeah.
So we're dealing with a radio professional. How many stations do you cover with the AFR radio?
We're on about 200 stations nationwide, and of course we have an app, and you can get us podcasts. So the reach is huge. I think the internet is becoming, and podcasts and apps are beginning to eclipse the reach of real broadcast stations. But we have 200 stations around the country.
Very good. This is a Conservative Commandos also reaches across the country through the world, the great internet that Al Gore so generously created for the rest of us.
Oh, Joe Biden, remember?
Oh, Joe Biden, he's now claiming, he's jumping. It's something about Democrat vice presidents that banned the internet and wanted to claim credit. But I guess it's because they're all old. Anyway, we were talking in the last segment, George Landrith from Frontiers of Freedom and I were talking in the last segment about the Equality Act. I know that American Family Association and you in particular have been very active in that. In fact, back when Target announced that they were going to allow men to enter women's bathrooms and vice versa, AFA was very much out front trying to provide a information to people about that, and a boycott ended up resulting. Give me a little sense of kind of what happened related to Target and trying to create gender-neutral bathrooms.
Well, let me just say that Target was on the cutting edge, shall we say, of taking down all the barriers of gender distinctions and using not only bathrooms but dressing rooms. And it was pretty shocking when it happened, and the American Family Association jumped in and established a boycott, which, by the way, is still going on. And many thousands of people are still boycotting Target, including me, because
and me, by the way.
What followed was a series of incidences where men who were not transgender were going into women's bathrooms and particularly into dressing rooms and taking cameras and taking pictures of girls dressing and undressing. And we have documented all of those at our website. It's afa.net. That's available there. And then there have been some attempted assaults. And so it's been a nightmare. And we've talked to corporate at Target, and they've just refused to budge. And so that was kind of the first precursor of what might happen if we break down the barriers of privacy that we have long enjoyed. So yes, AFA has been on the cutting edge of that. But Rick, I think the thing that has to be explained, and by the way, Breitbart helped us with that. Steve Bannon was still on the air when we started that boycott, and he talked to me several times on the air and helped us to get signatures and people to join our boycott. So I want to thank Breitbart listeners for their help on that. AFA has then, of course, been involved in the Equality Act, but I want to be the first to say, or to make clear, that this is not about some Christian proclivity to exclude people or mistreat people. This is about, morality is not bigotry. And the things that spare us in terms of modesty and the separation of sexes is something that's of human interest. It's of interest to all people. And so it's just that we're coming to the place where in the United States, hardly anyone will speak up against these outrageous maneuvers, except for Christian organizations. But that does not make the issue only a Christian interest. And so let me just say the Equality Act, which was passed in Congress just last week, takes what Target did even a step further, 10 steps further. It's like the Dream Act. It's like the wish list of the left. It's like the new Green Deal in spades for the gender issue, for LGBT concerns. And if it should pass, if it should go to the Senate and pass, it will be a nightmare for all Americans, regardless of their background, their race, creed, color, religion, whatever. It will be a nightmare. I would even argue that their most reasonable gay people, even maybe transgender people, would not embrace the radical nature of this policy that the Democrats are pushing.
Well, and that's one of the ironies. I saw a video that was produced by Cure, Star Parker's group, which featured a lesbian woman testifying before Congress against the Equality Act because it was going to effectively break down all of the gains that have been made in terms of women and equality. Things like Title IX, which we did discuss in the previous segment, but Title IX, which allows for women to have a pathway to getting college scholarships and having colleges invest in women's athletics. If you allow men to compete in women's athletics, you've effectively eliminated the entire purpose of Title IX. And in doing so, you have created you've broken a system that have essentially was allowed for a generation of young girls to be able to see a pathway to get a sports scholarship to universities, to colleges, and sometimes being the only way they'd be able to afford that university education. Remember, kids and minor athletes, women, girls who are competing, by and large, are not going to become world-class athletes who are going to make a lot of money. They're competing in minor sports, and they're really using that as a means to get the funds to go to college. That's what they're doing. And by denying people, women in high school who are athletically inclined and maybe wouldn't able to go to the same level of university otherwise, by making them compete against men at the university level and at the high school level, you're effectively denying them that opportunity and closing off one of the actual positive attributes that occurred out of Title IX. I don't want to go ahead.
Can I just add this one thing to add to that to help the explanation? The natural result of this is we've seen in the headlines, and that is that girls who are participating in sports, when you break down the gender barriers and you have a boy who says he's really a girl, he starts competing, and we've had a dozen probably examples of this. The girls lose because women we don't have the body strength that men have. And so we cannot compete head to head with men in sports and athletics. And so you have a tightened, that particular area of the Equality Act is really interesting because you've got the clash of this huge mega women's movement and the clash of the huge mega LGBT movement. That's the quintessential clash. What happens with women and their opportunities versus LGBT or transgender persons. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I want to add that the Equality Act is much broader and more scary than that, forcing doctors and medical persons to perform procedures that they don't in good conscience want to.
And we're talking gender change operations and the like, and forcing doctors to say this is a mental illness, this is not something, and we're actually going to harm your health by doing it, forcing them to engage in those procedures anyway.
Yes, and especially egregious is young children. Things that they're doing to young children, and forcing medical personnel to remove a boy's healthy parts, girls' healthy breasts, if they think they want to be the other gender. And they're doing these things, they're blocking the hormones so that they cannot develop their normal gender. Then they're starting to apply hormones of the other sex. And it's really, it's tragic. It's tragic. And that is what the Democrats did in the House just last week with the help of 8 Republicans.
It's amazing. What people can do about it is, the president still hasn't issued a veto threat, and they need to contact the White House and demand that the president issue a veto threat of the Inequality Act, H.R. 5. And secondly, they need to contact their senators and urge their senators to oppose it, to come out publicly and oppose it. There's no middle ground here. There's no fluidity. This is about who we're going to be and whether or not we're going to effectively allow this to occur. And with that, we're very late in the break, so you're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm Rick Manning. She's Sandy Rios. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commando Radio Network, broadcast all across this great nation on many, many stations. If you're listening to it on the radio, you know where you're listening to us. If you're watching us on TV, you know exactly which AUN station you're listening to. And if you're on the internet, then you know exactly how to find us. Tell somebody else to pick up the phone, pick up the internet, take a look at it, and see if you like it. We'll be right back with Sandy Rios.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
The AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. This is our last segment. We're happy you're still with us, and we're going to have some fun this segment. We're going to talk about some things that are, I think, are really, really important, but and are hot. There's a hot topic that's going on right now. But obviously, as always, if you like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, for more information, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. And Sandy Rios, who's the Director of Government Affairs for American Family Association, is with me right now. And Sandy, if people want to find out about the Equality Act or other things that that American Family Association is doing, how would they do so?
They could go to afa.net, afa.net, and that they'll find anything they want. And if they want to find me, it's Sandy Rios in the morning.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Sandy Rios in the morning and Sandy is the host of a show which has a modest 200 networks, radio affiliates, and who listen to it. So lots of opportunity to get more of Sandy. And Sandy is one of the great morning show hosts here in America, and she's a treat to listen to. So I'd encourage you to catch her. But let's talk about something a little different. We talked about the Equality Act, but I really want to switch gears here. We had something occur in the White House that is kind of unusual and took some people in Washington, D.C. by surprise. But Nancy Pelosi, before a meeting with the White House ostensibly on trying to work in a bipartisan way to do infrastructure bill, which is a traditional bipartisan kind of thing. Before she walks in the White House, she says the President of the United States is covering stuff up and is, in fact, and challenged the President Trump, and say he's engaged in massive cover-up. And needless to say, that didn't sit well with President Trump. And he and President Trump yesterday, during the meeting, basically walked in, said, "I don't cover stuff up. You're out of here." Threw him out of the meeting, and then went out to the Rose Garden and told the press why they were thrown out of the meeting. So it's and so we have this divide going on and give me your impressions of what the president did first of all, and then what you see as the ramifications of that.
Well, I think it was great what the president did. I had no problem with it. I think the thing that I thought when he gave a speech in the Rose Garden afterward, and he said, "I told them I want to do infrastructure. This is what I'm good at. I'm dying to do it. But you accused me of covering up, and I don't cover up anything." It was very plain language, and he talked about Gerald Nadler and how they had tangled with each other in New York City, and he said, "Now I'm back in D.C., and I've got to put up with him again." He's talking like that. So the D.C. establishment, as you and I both know very well, that they go harumph when they hear him talking like that and being so personal, because he's supposed to say, Congressman Nadler has been a problem in the past, but he doesn't talk that way. He just is Donald Trump, whether he's president or whether he's running a corporation. So he talks very plainly, and his natural anger and his honest responses are what is refreshing to the American people. That's why he's so popular. He doesn't play the Washington game. I've been hearing, you probably have too, that you know what, they can walk and chew gum at the same time. Nancy Pelosi can say in a press conference moments before she meets with him that he's covering up and committing what's probably impeachable offenses, and then go in and talk about infrastructure. That's the Washington way. They can do both. The reason they can do both is because they are liars on both sides, and they pretend and they posture, they play a game. President Trump doesn't play a game like that, Rick. And I loved what he did.
Well, and here's the equivalent. He's supposed to say, "My good friend, the gentlewoman from San Francisco, is mistaken on the cover-up issue. But we find lots of common ground on things where we'll be able to spend billions of dollars to satisfy her constituents' needs over the course of the next 10 years. And meanwhile, she'll spend all of her time hitting the pillars of the executive branch with a hammer, trying to bring down my presidency while I use my political expertise and ability and support to put billions of dollars into her Democrat districts so her Democrats can get reelected." You know what? Donald Trump's from New York, and he made it very clear we're not playing that game.
Well, I'm from Chicago. We talk plainly too, so I can tell you, Midwesterners are like, "Yeah, just tell it like it is and stop the blarney, stop the Washington blarney." So that's what he did yesterday.
Blarney's a really good name for it.
It is. It is.
So, we have so what we've got is we've got now this, the a lot of the left and the professional, the media, which is the left, the same thing, sit there and they're saying, "Oh, she trapped him into this precipitous thing." And
tantrum.
Let me just be clear. Nancy Pelosi thinks she's the smartest person in the room, but if she's in the room with Donald Trump, this is his game. She's playing on his game board. She doesn't even realize she's on his game board. He doesn't do things precipitously. He does things, he has things planned out. He walked in there knowing exactly what he was going to do. He knew he was going to go to the Rose Garden, and he knew by not being this, by saying to Nancy Pelosi, "We're not playing this game," that was going to get sent across the country. And the message was clear. The Democrats would rather investigate false charges and look and basically spend their time trying to relitigate the 2016 election over and over and over again than actually govern for the people of the United States. That's what he told people, and that's why he's going to win, because the Democrats cannot win as the impeachment Congress. Nancy Pelosi knows it, and by cutting her legs off in terms of being able to do both, at that point she's put in a position of being only one thing. She has to choose. I'm going to be an impeachment Congress, or I'm going to do something Congress. And right now she's stuck with impeachment Congress, and she knows that the people reject that.
Yes, and Rick, I think that sometimes when we who are Washington-based talk, we're talking about Washington stuff. It doesn't mean anything to people listening. But if we say that, look at the border, out of control. Look at the murders in Maryland just this week.
Yep.
One girl just brutally murdered by MS-13 who came across the border. Russians coming across the border. People from the Middle East. And Congress does nothing. They come before that microphone and play those stupid games and bring out the fried chicken while the country is suffering in this way and people's lives are being lost and even the immigrant children's lives are being lost. It's their fault. It's very clear. There are real consequences to their engagement in this kind of a dangerous charade. And it needs to be made very clear before this election.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. I live down the street from from the county where that girl was murdered in. And most people haven't heard about this. Let me give you the 10-second version. Two males, 16 and 17, had been arrested and in juvenile detention for 10 months for attempted murder. They were from El Salvador. They were MS-13 members. They got out. They were then convicted. They then committed another crime. ICE said, when these guys get out of your custody, Prince George's County, we want to be able to come pick them up for deportation. They are criminals. The Prince George's County, because it's a sanctuary county, released them instead. Now Prince George's County, well, it's because the Maryland Attorney General said we had to, because he said we would be illegally detaining them under Fourth Amendment by detaining them for 48 hours so ICE could come get them. But nonetheless, because they're a sanctuary county, because Byron Frosch, the guy who's the AG in Maryland, is a left-wing kook, you have this, we're letting them out. So what were the consequences? A 14-year-old girl, who was actually one of the accomplices in their crime, by the way, allegedly, gets chopped up with a machete and brutally murdered because they were afraid she was going to squeal on them. So we had this girl destroyed, her life destroyed forever, all because we weren't going to allow ICE to send people who were committing murder, attempted murder, back to El Salvador. We had to put them back on the streets of Prince George's County. This is important to me. I live in the adjacent county to Prince George's County. The people who they chose to murder could just as well have been my neighbors or my relatives as anybody else. So this isn't esoteric. This is real.
No, it's not. Playing games is not worthy of the seriousness of this, and it needs to be clear to the American people that the people we've elected, and even Republicans, not all of them, but many of them, are playing a dangerous game at our expense. It's not just our money and tax dollars, it is our lives and welfare. It has to stop.
That's absolutely right. And on that note, we're gonna go out here, and I want to thank Sandy Rios for joining me. American Family Association. Go to afa.net to get more information on the Equality Act or other things that Sandy's up to in her radio show. And obviously we appreciate your tuning in to the Conservative Commando Radio Network. If you want to get a rebroadcast, ccrsnetwork.com. And just thank you for spending the time with us.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle. Yes, that's Sharron Angle. And yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You can find rebroadcast of our TV show there, our radio show there, a lot of great articles, and a lot of terrific information. And Sharron, our next guest is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege for me to introduce Joseph Duggan. Joe Duggan is the head of C-Suite Strategic Counsel and International Business and Public Affairs Consultancy. He served on the editorial board of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, in the Reagan State Department on the staffs of Ambassadors Jeane Kirkpatrick and Edward Browning, and as a White House speechwriter for Presidents George H.W. Bush. From 2009 to 2015, he worked in Saudi Arabia as a speechwriter for the CEO of Aramco. He is also the author of the book Khashoggi, Dynastics and Double Standards. Joe, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be on your show.
Well, thank you. It's our privilege to have you. And we want to talk to you about terror attacks on Saudi oil operations expose the folly of Rubio and Graham's moralism. We haven't heard too much about this, really. These tanker ships in the strategic pipeline of Aramco, the world's largest oil company, that suffered terrorist attacks last week. Talk to us a little bit about the attacks.
Well, it was in the news that first Sunday a week ago, I believe it was, there were attacks on bombings of four oil tankers, four vessels in the Arabian Gulf, just east of Saudi Arabia, between south of Iran, south of the strategic Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is where the Persian Gulf ends, and there's a narrow strait through which ships have to pass to go into what's called the Arabian Gulf, and from there, that opens up widely into the Indian Ocean. To give you an idea of the geography, and at that point, the ships are on very open seas in the Indian Ocean. It was in that space beyond, towards the more open side, following the Strait of Hormuz, where these terror attacks took place, and there were bombs that caused damage, putting out of service two huge Saudi Arabian oil tankers and two other vessels, one which was flagged to a European country and one which was flagged to the United Arab Emirates, as I recall. But for certain, two Saudi Arabian oil tankers were attacked and damaged. 1 or 2 days later, there was a drone strike against the east-west pipeline in Saudi Arabia at a location somewhere between Riyadh in the center of the country and the Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia, where there's a refinery and where there are several refineries and petrochemical plants. The attacks were not devastating, but they didn't disrupt oil flow in any significant way, so it is said. But this is the fact that they happened and that they were deliberate, is a warning that bad things can happen there, and it's widely believed and accepted by people, including me, that probably Iran was somehow behind the attacks, if not directly. Proteges, clients of the Iranians did it. The Houthis in Yemen are at war with Saudi Arabia, and they are definitely clients of the Iranians. What this means for United States security is that it could escalate into a wider war, which maybe would get our military involved. I don't want that to happen. President Trump says that he does not want it to happen. But my concern, having lived in Saudi Arabia, being grateful for having had an opportunity to live there and work for their oil company, still I assert that I'm for United States interests, not Saudi interests, in as much as they might be different or opposed to ours. And I feel the same way about Israel, and I feel Iran is more. I feel the same way about Iran too, except that Iran is a declared adversary. The Saudis are declared friends, right? The Saudis do not. The Saudi regime does not want to become a democracy. They want to retain their autocratic monarchy. That really disturbs many Americans across the spectrum, and it's understandable. It's not. I'm not an advocate of making other regimes more like Saudi Arabia's, but the prudential question is: should our politicians be going about in a reckless way to try to undermine Saudi Arabia's regime when they are our allies, and when more or less, and a lot more than less, they're behaving in ways that are conducive to our security and to our economic interests? That's why I came to write this little book. It's from Encounter Books, which is a very distinguished publishing company. You may know it. Publishes very conservative books of a very high intellectual and editorial caliber. They have a series of books that are very slim called broadsides. They're almost like pamphlets. Mine is like 50 pages or so, a paperback. So it's a quick read. If you'll let me, I'll get to why did I write this just recently and arrange to get it published. It's because of what happened to Jamal Khashoggi and all the media sensation that went around his disappearance and then his murder. Khashoggi, what I like to tell people as far as my credentials go and why it's worth listening to what I have to say and worth reading what I have to write is that all sorts of people with a whole lot of power to cause mischief while being misinformed in Washington, D.C. They're all talking about Jamal Khashoggi, but I actually talked with Jamal Khashoggi. I lived in Saudi Arabia. I met him. I knew about him. I met him on just one occasion, but on that occasion, I had a very long talk with him. I was seated at a luncheon next to him at a public relations conference in Dubai, and we had a very interesting conversation with one another. And so I'm not the world's greatest expert about Jamal Khashoggi, but I know a lot more about him than so many people who are advocating very irresponsible actions in response to his murder. He now don't get me wrong. It's not. I'm not cold-hearted or cold-blooded. Mm-hmm. When I was on the receiving end, just like so many other people in the West, of the stories in the Washington Post and CNN and so on and so forth about his disappearance, and then about his rumored murder, and then about his confirmed murder, and then the horrible details that perhaps are true. I can't say they're not true, but they're also not proven to me about how I was tortured and so on and so forth. Well, of course, I couldn't sleep at night. I agonized thinking about, he was a very charming man, and I had a nice conversation with him once upon a time. But the evil deed, the foul deed having been done, now what do we do? Characters like Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Marco Rubio and former Senator Bob Corker and former Senator Jeff Flake responded in this poorly informed and exceedingly moralistic way, saying, oh, now the United States must punish the government of Saudi Arabia for having assassinated this man, and we must punish them severely. And Graham and Rubio, for example, also spoke out strongly in favor of having the ruler of Saudi Arabia being removed from office. Well, what does that get us? I mean, the man, we didn't choose him. But we don't choose rulers of Saudi Arabia, right? If we could choose somebody else, would we do any better? They all have to come out of the royal family. Otherwise, you have a total revolution and total chaos in that country. But I was astonished and disturbed that Republicans who claim a conservative mantle are so far off the deep end, some of them, in this very radical and naive neoconservative attitude about promote democracy everywhere and anywhere, even when the culture isn't conducive to the development or the sustaining of democracy, and also threaten regime change. If there's not enough enemies to threaten regime change, how about threaten regime change of our friends, right?
Right.
And it brought me back to the earliest days of my career. I was only in my 20s. I had been a newspaper writer as a real young guy in Richmond, Virginia. And when Reagan was elected, through very, very good fortune, I was introduced to Gene Kirkpatrick by one of my mentors, turned out to be one of Gene Kirkpatrick's closest friends, and introduced me to her. And I was a big fan of Ambassador Designate Kirkpatrick. And so I got even though I wasn't part of Kirkpatrick's most intimate group of advisors, and I was very young, I got a job on her staff, and I actually worked for her at the UN in New York, and then also later in her office in the State Department. And I've never forgotten, and I've always tried to be true to the lessons that I learned from working from this great thinker and this great leader and this great patriot. And what I say in my little book, it's called Khashoggi Dynasties and Double Standards. My title is a deliberate reference to her famous essay, which was called Dictatorships and Double Standards. That was an essay that she wrote for Commentary magazine in the year 1979, representing a very strong break with the Carter administration. She was a Democrat. And,
hey, Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are coming up against a hard break. And we want to pick up this conversation on the other side. Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Joe Duggan. He is the author of the book Khashoggi Dynasties and the Double Standards. We're also talking about the terror attacks on the salty oil operations this past week or so. Don't go away. Sharron and I will be right back with our guest.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Once again, for rebroadcast, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Don't look for us on Facebook since Facebook has banned our website. But you can hear rebroadcasts of our shows, our radio show, our TV show at www.ccrshow.com. Very pleased to have Joe Duggan with us today. Joe Duggan is the head of C-Suite Strategic Council, and he's also worked in the Bush White House, and he's also worked with Ambassadors Jean Kilpatrick and Edward Roney. Joe, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time. Can you hold up your book, please? Khashoggi, yes. Dynasties and the Double Standard.
Yes, can you see it well?
Can see it very well. Thank you for that.
It's a very slender book. It only costs $4.05 on Amazon. It's also available as an ebook, at least from Barnes & Noble, and I think it will be from Amazon too, as a Kindle book, and it's available now as a Nook book on Barnes & Noble. It's also available on other platforms, both electronic and as a slender paperback book. So it's 56 pages. It's called a broadside because Encounter Books has this series in order to have timely and short treatments of controversies.
Well, Joe, you're the man to write this book, as you said. You know, a lot of people have talked about Khashoggi, but you actually met him. You actually met him. You talked with him. What can you tell us about Khashoggi the man?
Well, I didn't know him well. I just had one conversation with him, but it was a long one, and I knew about him before I met him, and then I considered his life and career, particularly after he was murdered, and tried to make sense of what had happened. Mm-hmm. I can say this, that there's myths about him have been made. He's been mythologized into a martyr for freedom of the press, for human rights, for democracy. He was not really leading in that direction or in favor of that. Or if it were any kind of democracy, it would have been the sort of democracy that happened in Egypt for a little while when Mohammed Morsi was elected for the Muslim Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. It turns out that Khashoggi had sympathies with the Muslim Brotherhood, and which is radical and revolutionary, and which is opposed to the more conservative but authoritarian regimes of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, mm-hmm. The United Arab Emirates, and so forth. So,
Joe, and what I wanted to also talk with you about is this knee-jerk reaction coming from people like Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham. Their knee-jerk reaction to the murder of Khashoggi, and also this idea of regime change. I've never seen anywhere around the world where this idea of regime change has helped the United States, has actually been an asset to the United States. We can go back to the 1970s, the overthrow of the Shah of Iran. We can look what happened in even Libya with the death of Omar Gaddafi, and also we can add into, or I'll add into it, the overthrow of the government in Egypt a few years ago. Regime change doesn't seem to work, and now here we've got a partner, a true ally in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, and all of a sudden there is this murder, tragic as it may be, as confusing as it may be, but you got people like Rubio and Lindsey Graham right away want to do things that are going to hurt one of our allies there.
Well, yeah, that's what I say too. I mean, it's within the realm of responsibility, I'd say, for U.S. senators to speak out against the horror of what and brutality of what was done to Khashoggi, but to react in such a way as to say we must slap huge sanctions against Saudi Arabian government. We must try somehow to militate for the removal from power of the ruler of Saudi Arabia, the crown prince, it doesn't make any sense. It's unrealistic, and it damages our interests because, look, there's no democracies in that region, and there's no countries that have human rights records that we would be proud to have over there. None of them. And some of them are strategically friendly and allied with us and have good economic relationships with us and are enemies of our enemies. And that's at a minimum, it's pragmatic. I'm not taking a moral or religious side in favor of the Sunni Arab Muslims against the Iranian Shia Muslims, but the fact is that the Iranian regime really is inimical to us. Mm-hmm. They call us the Great Satan. Well, the Saudis don't do that. The Kuwaitis don't do that. So again, and they're more ideological and more revolutionary too. It doesn't mean that I want war with Iran either. I definitely don't. I don't favor a war to bring about regime change in Iran, even though they are not friendly to us. But back to the fact that we have a confrontation with Iran now, which is dangerous, and it confronts our interests and the neighboring countries and rivals of Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, for example. Well, how crazy is it to be threatening sanctions and calling in effect for regime change in Saudi Arabia when you're trying to prevent a war with Iran and prevent that war by being strong, being strong but not overly bellicose is what I would do. Well,
one thing we can't. One thing I don't like us to do, Joe, is to cut off our nose to spite our face.
Right.
That really concerns me. That I think that there's times when you got to say what is in the best interest of the United States, which is maybe an unpopular thing. It's unpopular for a lot of people to hear that, but my gosh, again. Regime change doesn't work. Show me a place where it's worked. It hasn't. And also, when you talk about democracies in that area, like you say, there are none. There have been none. Israel, but okay, Israel is a recent creation. But when you talk about Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, here you have dynasties going back hundreds of years. They don't know what a democracy is. They would not know how to operate under a democracy. And the devil is the devil that they know.
It's true. And as much as I do prefer democracy as a system for people to live on, I want our democracy here in the United States to be a healthier democracy. It's not a healthy democracy now. And perversely, our own democracy is undermined by disinformation and propaganda regarding our strategic interests. If I can mention Israel again. Israel is a country that the overwhelming number of American citizens love Israel. They want to support it very strongly. You see this across the board in the Democratic Party. Has been long been very pro-Israeli. The Republican Party has become increasingly
I think we've got to switch there. The Democrat Party is becoming more anti-Israel. Right. The Republican Party becoming more pro-Israel. Hey, Joe, we got to go, but I wanted to give you the minute or so we have left. Again, hold up that book.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Yeah.
Tell our audience where they can get it and why they need to read it.
Viewers and listeners. Yeah, your viewers and listeners, I invite you to get a copy of this book. Discuss it with your friends if you have a book club or a political group that cares about foreign policy, and we all should. This is easy enough to read, but it presents a very harsh and strong challenge to some of the Republicans who are very influential. As we've talked about, Senator Rubio. I don't know the man. I don't. This is nothing personal. Before before 2016, I thought I was all for Rubio, but he seems to have so much resentment against President Trump that he wants to go for far out foreign policy postures, almost anything he can do to undermine what the president wants to do. Finally, back to Israel, you see that we're on the verge of some kind of announcement soon of a Middle East peace plan, meaning Israel and Palestinians. There's all sorts of signals from the Saudis. The Saudis are going to be on board with it. Well, again, let's assume that's true. It probably is. Why on earth do we want to cut off our nose to spite our face?
I totally agree.
Overly antagonistic to the Saudis when we're on the verge of maybe Saudi recognition of Israel. I mean, that's a game changer.
That would be huge. Hey, Joe, we got it.
Right.
Joe Duggan, I'm sorry. We could continue. Sometimes we get guests that we could make the whole show with. Unfortunately, we are coming up against a hard break. Joe Duggan, again, please hold up that book and remind our listeners how they can get it.
Rick and Sharron, it's delightful to get acquainted with you and to talk with you today.
Joe, would love to have you back. Seriously.
Sure, please do.
Love to have you back. Joe Duggan, thank you. Where can people get the book one more time?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online orders that way, direct from the publisher, which is called Encounter Books.
All right. Joe Duggan, we want to thank you so much for joining us here in Conservative Commandos. Take care and God bless.
Thanks a lot.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We will be back with more right after this break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Well, Sharron, that just about wraps it up for today's show. And like I said, I hope you and your family have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Again, I want to remind our audience, please do something patriotic this weekend. Please remember the men and women who sacrificed their lives so that we could be the United States of America. But have a great holiday. Enjoy your hot dogs, your hamburgers, your picnics, your fireworks, whatever you're going to do. But please, please remember the reason for Memorial Day. All right, but for now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Since Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez first announced her Green New Deal, every major Democrat candidate for president has jumped on board. They're talking the talk, but are they walking the walk? Also, in case you didn't really believe that there's a crisis at the border, ICE has new numbers, new information from a report yesterday. We'll dive into that, plus all your viewer feedback and comments. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, the Democrats are out there. They're going state to state, jockeying for position, trying to make their case known for president of the United States. They've embraced Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal as if she's the Pied Piper, and they're just blindly following her. They're talking the talk, but are they really following through on their beliefs? No. And we'll get into some of the facts and the figures. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez isn't even doing it. I mean, just take a look at this. She talked about getting rid of planes, getting rid of cars, getting rid of cows. And here's a clip that we showed earlier. Just want to kind of refresh you on the hypocrisy that is AOC, and it leads into what the other Democrats are doing as well. Take a look at this clip.
We got to address factory farming. Maybe we shouldn't be eating a hamburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, let's keep it real.
Slow down.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Shake Shack.
Your top cheese, okay? But we have to take a look at everything, and what we need to realize is that climate change is about every choice that we make in our lives.
Okay, so we can't be having burgers, right? But look at this picture. Yeah, man, that's a nice, juicy burger. It's looking really good. And that's her with her chief of staff just digging right into it. So that's her chief of staff, though. But what about her? Surely she is following the proposals, the ideas of the Green New Deal, trying to lead by example, right? Well, not exactly. Take a look at this report. This is from the Post, and they said, since declaring her candidacy in May 2017, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign relied heavily on combustible engine cars, even though a subway station was just 138 feet from her Elmhurst campaign office. She listed 1,049 transactions for Uber, Lyft, Juno, and other car services, federal filings show. The campaign had 550 Uber expenses alone. In all, AOC spent over $29,000 on those emission-spewing vehicles, along with cars and van rentals, even though her Queens headquarters was just a 1-minute walk to the 7 train. The campaign shelled out only a little over $8,000 on 52 metro transactions. Okay, so there's your cars and trains and stuff like that. What about airplanes? All right, take a look at this. Her campaign embraced the friendly skies, logging 66 airline transactions costing over $25,000 during the campaign season. The Democrat firebrand or her staff took Amtrak far less, only 18 times, despite high-speed rail being the cornerstone of her Save the World strategy. Okay, so when that criticism came out, how did she react? Did she say she needs to do better? No, she just fought back, and here's what she tweeted shortly after that report came out. It said, I fly, I use AC, living in the world as it isn't an argument against working towards a better future. The Green New Deal is about putting a lot of people to work in developing new technologies, building new infrastructure, and getting us to 100% renewable energy. All right, that last part we'll get into with a clip that she just said yesterday, in fact, on late night talk show. But it really says a lot about what her actual overall vision is. All right, that's her. That's her Green New Deal. That's how she's not living it. But what about the other candidates? All right, well, the Washington Times had a report yesterday that talked about, they're trying to dig into if these candidates embrace the Green New Deal, what are they doing to live it? And here's what they had to say. After inquiries from the Washington Times, only one, the campaign of South Bend Mayor Peter Buttigieg, said it will consider proactive steps to make up for the dirty business, carbon speaking, of the campaign. He's pledged not to take contributions from the fossil fuel industry, and we're looking into ways to reduce the carbon footprint, he said spokesman Liz Smith. Every other campaign contacted by the Times ignored the inquiries, making it anyone's guess how seriously they will take their admissions. All right, so they're not walking the walk, but they continue to talk the talk. Here's just a recent clip from Beto O'Rourke, who is freaking out about the end of the world emissions. We got to stop it right now or the world will end. Take a look at this clip.
This is our final chance. The scientists are absolutely unanimous on this, that we have no more than 12 years to take incredibly bold action on this crisis.
All right, so he is in full freak out mode with the hand and the everything like that. But what's amazing with his statement is he says that scientists are unanimous in saying that the world will end in 12 years unless something drastic is done. And that's 100% false. And I don't know if he's, blatantly lying or with all of this stuff going on, if he just doesn't know what he's actually saying. But luckily, the Associated Press, who is no friend of conservatives, actually came out and finally just put an end to that talk in that talking point and tried to set the record straight. So here is their fact check of what AOC and Beto and some others have been saying. Said there is no scientific consensus, much less unanimity, that the planet only has 12 years to fix the problem. A report by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, drawn from the work of hundreds of scientists, uses 2030 as a prominent benchmark because signatories to the Paris Agreement have pledged emission cuts by then. But it's not a last chance, hard deadline for action, as it has been interpreted in some quarters. Glad to clear this up, James Sky said, co-chairman of the report and professor of sustainable energy at Imperial College London, told the Associated Press. The panel did not say we have 12 years left to save the world. All right, but they're still out there talking about it and embracing this gloom and doom strategy that warrants a Green New Deal and a massive government takeover. In fact, just last night on Late Night with Seth Meyers, AOC was out there again, and here's what she had to say.
We need to declare our North Star, and our North Star is 100% renewable energy. It's Medicare for all, it's tuition-free public colleges, it's investing in technology and renewable resources and electric vehicles.
All right, so she talks about 100% renewable energy, Medicare for all, tuition-free public colleges, investing in renewable resources and electric vehicles. All right. First of all, as far as investing in, renewables and stuff, remember Solyndra? I mean, this was the scam of Obama and probably his cronies investing in solar into companies that receive billions and billions of dollars, and they just went bankrupt. You don't need government intervention to direct people or spur the economy in a certain direction. If you recall, remember when electric cars first, started really being talked about? If people are old enough, they remember that it was when gasoline prices spiked to over $4 a gallon, and all of a sudden, without government intervention, people said, man, maybe we should look at electric vehicles because we don't want to pay that. Now, with the advances of technology, electric cars are becoming even more popular, and I would say in 5-10 years, but probably 5 years, every major car company that we know of is going to have an all-electric vehicle available for consumers. And that's just driven by consumer demand and the advances in technology. It doesn't need government pushing them along. And so this whole idea, though, what she calls her North Star, is a massive government takeover. It is socialism. I mean, when you're talking about free tuition for all and, free jobs for all and things like that, whenever they throw out free, it means it's costing us. And that plan where she talks about protecting the environment is so much more. The Green New Deal is about government intervention and government takeover, period. So let's move on from that to the border, because things are really bad. And in case, some of your friends are talking about how, Trump has declared this a national crisis, but it's really not. They're getting other news sources and they're not getting the full picture. Well, let's listen from actual officials. Okay, so here's a report from the Daily Caller, and it talks about the border situation and how over the last few months we've released 100,000 immigrants into the American population because ICE simply can't handle it. Here's their report. While speaking to reporters on Thursday, Natalie Asher, a senior official with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, revealed her agency has had to relocate resources as it deals with a crushing surge of illegal aliens on the country's southern border. ICE has not only been forced to reduce its activity in the interior of the U.S., but the agency's overcrowded detention centers have released 107,000 migrant family members in the past 3 months, averaging more than 1,000 illegals a day. All right, so in this week, we've just seen examples of it. There have been officials that were grilled in San Jose, California this week, a town hall meeting, because earlier there was a stabbing. A woman, 59 years old, was stabbed. She was stalked and killed by an illegal alien. You had a deputy sheriff that was killed. You had 4 people in Nevada that were killed by an illegal alien who was on a rampage looking for money to buy drugs. And this is what we're facing right here. When we're releasing 1,000 illegals a day into society, something needs to be done. So if you don't want to listen to Trump, if your friends don't want to listen to Trump, look at the facts. Look at what is actually going on the southern border. And when you consider that, Americans mobilize and declarations of emergency are stated and put into place for floods and other things like that, look at what is going on the southern border. Something definitely needs to be done. All right, so it's Friday. I want to go a little lighter. I wanted to dive into some of your comments. There have been thousands and thousands of comments on the show and great feedback from readers. And I just want to encourage you to please keep doing it. And let's dive into some of them because they've been great. Here's one from Paul Deal. And he says, Bobby hit the nail on the head. The government wants the population to be 100% dependent on them for food, housing, defense, health, everything. Once we can no longer do anything for ourselves, the government will take total control of our lives and tell, for our own good, how to live our lives. And that's what the end goal is for the left is. And I've tried to state that in show after show that they are moving towards, it's not about protecting the environment or giving people a chance. It's about government control. The more that people can turn away from God or turn away from family or turn away from, anything that binds them together other than government and embrace government, then the left wins, and that is what they're trying to do. Okay, so Mary Sumner, once again, liberal platform consists of the 3 R's, rage, ridicule, and rhetoric. It's all they have. Man, that's a good one, and I appreciate the comment because they won't debate. They won't engage in the facts and let people decide. They know they can't win, so they try to label people as bigots, racists, shout over people. I tend to be a calm guy and try and talk through the facts, and all they do is shout people out and try and get rid of them so that they are the only voice. So thanks for the comment. All right, so now we have My Simcha Faith says, great 13-minute news show, straight to the point, not a lot of noise, and better yet, no screaming. Keep it up. Jeffrey Becks, concise and well-articulated, a new fan. Keep up the great video, and I hope your channel blows up. Well, man, I hope it does too, and I thank you for the comments, and we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep working on it for sure. So here's one more. I discovered your channel, great video, 100%, so I subscribed. I read your brief little bio. Are you the same man who did the IndyCar racing? Keep up the great videos. All right, and that's from Lynn Swango. All right. Well, I appreciate it. And yes, I'm on what's known as the Road to Indy, which is a development series to get to IndyCar. And obviously, I started late. All my competitions like 17 and 18-year-olds. But it's really developed. I'm a 3-time national champion for the 30 and over class. And in 2017, kind of my breakthrough season, I finished 5th overall in the series against competitors that were 18 or 19 and was ready to move up to the next level, which is Indy Lights, won from the top. But we ran into sponsorship issues, and I'm still waiting for a sponsor. I'm working hard to try and get back out there on the racetrack because I'd love to be racing and love to be kind of representing the older generation that shows that you can do it if you put your mind to it. So I appreciate the comment. And folks, I thank you for tuning in. Please have a great weekend. Thanks again for subscribing, and add your comments. Let me know what you think, how we can improve the show, and just what you think about the issues. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is the 13-Minute News Hour.